I'm Matthew McCabe. Welcome to Miracle Voices. Each episode, we will be delving into stories of forgiveness, healing, and transformation that have come about from integrating the principles of the book A Course in Miracles. If you want to learn more about A Course in Miracles, visit www.acim.org. If you'd like to visit the Miracle Voices site, please go to www.miraclevoices.org. If you feel inspired to make a love offering, please visit us at miraclevoices.org/donate. All donations go to support the work of the Foundation for Inner Peace, the publisher of A Course in Miracles. Now here's your program. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Miracle Voices. This is your co-host, Matthew McCabe, here with my co-host, Tam Morgan. Tam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm sitting in a parking lot.
Right.
Just always game for this. I love this so much. I drive anywhere and be anywhere so that I could connect with you guys.
Great. And by you guys, she means me and Josine Peters. Josine, welcome to Miracle Voices.
Welcome.
Thank you, Tam and Matt. I'm so honored to be here with you. This is delicious.
Same.
Well, what part of the world are you in, Josine?
What did you say? What type of world?
Yeah, what type of world are you in?
Let's go with that. That's a lot better.
What time zone? Okay, I am in miracle time. I'm in Central time zone. So I'm in the Midwest, and there's lots of snow here, and it's kind of like a Currier and Ives photograph or something. You know, it's just beautiful snow everywhere. Not too cold.
Good. Well,
perfect.
Thanks so much for being with us today. Maybe a good place to start would just be to tell us how A Course in Miracles came into your life.
Well, I was given a book, A Course in Miracles, a hardcover copy about 22 years ago, I believe, and just thought, oh, this looks like something that has a lot of pages. So I just had the book, you know, and I had a friend who was reading it and doing it. And I kind of was hearing from him what was going on. And Joel Hodrop is his name. And he went on to do, you know, all these wondrous things. And I didn't pick it up until probably 10 years later. And then I started reading it every day. I was down in Mexico on a retreat for singing and yoga, and just started doing it then and kept inviting one person a year to do it with me. And then I joined a group with Tina Begel. And so I'm doing that once a week with her and then continuing it on my own. And just really, I'm someone who absorbs things. I have to really feel it in my soul. I'm a dancer, and if you tell me go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, I can't do it. But once I get the right music and the right, you know, feel for it, it's mine. And I feel that's really happening now with the Course.
Great. And how would you say A Course in Miracles has changed your life or helped you evolve in any way?
Well, my favorite thing is it taught me that whatever is weird is God. So it's these happenings that people say are coincidence have much more depth to them, and I have more insight into me, but then the sight of God is what I call it, you know, like walking the earth kind of through Jesus's eyes, seeing that miracles just don't drop from the heavens. They're already here. We already have everything we need. And it's brought abundance to my life besides wondrous, miraculous things. And I have a new definition for abundance. It's not receiving like prosperity or wealth. It's about the assurance that everything you pray for, ask for, or wish for is already here. You already have. So I have everything I need for today.
Great.
I like that.
Good.
It sounds like you've been dancing through the course with different partners each year. How long ago did you pick it up in time after the 10 years that you didn't have it? I mean, that you
so
had
for
it but
the
didn't
last
look at
12 dozen years, I've been doing it.
it. A dozen years. Interesting.
It's exposed a while ago, but really absorbing it for the last, I'd say the last 5 have been the greatest. I couldn't get anyone to do the whole year with me, but I did the whole year. So that drop out or whatever, but it was good to have them help build the habit in me of just turning to it.
And have you done the text along with it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Every year?
This year I'm not so much, because I'm adding other things like Toltec wisdom and seeing that the course courses through the blood of all those other things, that it definitely has the wisdom of all the wise sages that I've discovered on earth.
Nice. That's what I love about the course, that you can do it with other things and it just partners so beautifully.
I agree.
Well, Josine, we'd love to hear your forgiveness story.
Yes, it's an amazing story. And I would call it more compassion, but compassion is forgiveness. So this summer, we're in 2023 now. So the summer of 2022, I was driving in my little Prius, which was a cool car because it has a solar panel. And my son is an astrophysicist. He just loves IT and string theory. And I always thought I'd give that car to him because it had the solar panel that was only rigged to cool the car or heat the car when you weren't in it. It wouldn't charge your phone. And so I knew he could jerry rig it someday and get it to what he wanted. So I was going to pass it on to him. So I'd had it since 2015 and just loving it up, and coming home from a treatment for acupuncture because I had been in a car accident with that car, and it survived the accident along with me, but I needed a little bit of help with healing. And it was just this lovely summer day, except it was extremely hot. I think it was the hottest day of the summer. It was July 18th. And I was driving around this lake, and it was a couple blocks from my home, and coming home and on the phone, because I have hands-free phone ability, so you talk through the rearview mirror. I was having this chance to do my miracle coaching, which I do. And it was for a woman that had had a seizure. And she was also a friend of mine. So I said, I'll just do a coaching session with you, help you out wherever you need it. And she happened to be calling while I was driving. So I was talking to her on the phone and just really having this loving stuff, because God just comes through me. Like that prayer we say at the beginning here, which is wonderful. I just let the words come through me. And it feels almost effortless. And whatever I expose myself during the day becomes exactly what they're kind of holding out, and I can just pass it on to them. It's amazing how my life works out. Okay, so that's the other miraculous part of the Course in Miracles, where I have that flow through me too. And so I was doing that and just kind of absorbed in that, yet feeling pretty present moment. And so I noticed that there was these 2 gals that were crossing the street in front of me. And so I could slow down and stop for them. And as they ran across, because there was 2 more on the other side, young teenagers. And so I slowed down and they stopped in the middle of the road. And I went, oh, wow. And the other 2 on the other side came to my car and jumped in the back seat. And I just went into this mode because I was coaching and doing that. So I just was kind of that way with them. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's really hot out. Get in. They were already in. And then the other 2 came and I'm like, oh, but y'all have to get in the back seat, which they couldn't possibly fit. They were big gals and they couldn't fit in the back seat. So one jumped in the front. The smallest was going to get in the front, which I thought, well, that's probably good. But instead she went to the back, and the other one who I think was kind of the leader, got in the front. And it was very weird because it threw them off that I said, yeah, come on in. And they didn't know what to say. And also they had kind of this, they were just babies to me. They were just youth. And I work a lot with youth in the gardens on the north side of my town and help grow food for the people and get these young people involved. And, it was just like, okay, they're just here. I could just see the divinity of them. And they were trying to do something. I knew they had a mission, but I also did. And so I just brought them into mine. And they gave reverence to the call. You know how you jump in the car with somebody and they're already on the phone, so you'd stay quiet. And they stayed quiet. And I just announced, oh, I'm on the phone, but I'm going up here and I can just drop you off. I can only go so far, and proceeded driving. And I wasn't in panic mode because the old me 10 years ago or 5 years ago would have gone, oh my God, I'm being jacked. I'm being carjacked. They just jumped in my car. What do I do? What do I do? I should do something. All I knew is that I wasn't going to go home. I wasn't going to bring them to my house. That was the only thought that came. And so I thought, I'm going for a ride too. We're all going for a ride. And I love car rides. And I just stayed in that. And then I kept coaching and talking about, the seizure and when we seize up and how we have to have an openness and things like that, being really loving. And they were listening. They were listening to it. And finally, they kind of thought, I don't know what thoughts came over them, but they went, your car's leaking, pull over. And I said, oh, I was just in an accident, and I'm going in tomorrow to have them recheck on it. So don't worry, I'm fine. And I kept driving. And you could feel the energy. They were trying to communicate with each other and do glances. And I kept driving. And they go, turn here. And I said, oops, I missed the turn because it was on a parkway and they wanted me to turn off the parkway. And then I thought, I'm going to kind of go with their flow a little bit. And so I said, I'll turn up here and come back around. And I kept talking and coaching all the time while I was driving. And we came around and there was a spot with an empty lot. And I had a for sale sign. And then there was, I figured, we're more in the neighborhood. There's more on the parkway. There weren't so many homes, but there was in this area. So I thought, this is my neighborhood. All is well. And I just kept building that all is well. And then they said, stop here. And I said, oh, wow, that lot is for sale. You guys, you're getting out here. You could buy that. I just planted that future for them. Like, wow, you guys, that's so cool. You're right at this lot, And then they looked at me and said, turn off the phone. And I said, I can't. She had a seizure and this is an important call. And my friend couldn't hear them. I thought she could. So I kind of had that idea of safety that she could call for help if I needed it, if things got bad. And she told me later that she couldn't hear them, but she could hear me. And when I said that, she said, oh, I can get off the phone. And I'm like, no, you're not getting off the phone. And so then they looked at me, the car was stopped, and the one in the front seat said, I'm really sorry. She stopped and paused and said, I'm really sorry for what I'm about to do to you. And she pulled out of her bag her weapon. She had a taser in there and a knife. And I realized, okay, the different reality I was building is done. It's time for me to exit the movie. And so I hit my seatbelt and it didn't unclick. And I had to hit it again and again. So this is kind of going in slow motion. And she could have stabbed me like 3 times because I had to hit it 3 times. And she just was kind of paused, like no movement. They could have grabbed me from the back seat and choked me, and nothing was happening except for me trying to trigger that thing. And then I flew out of the car. And the biggest one from the back was right behind me. She was coming around to grab me. And I flew past her somehow. And she was putting on gloves, those blue surgical gloves or whatever. And they were all putting on gloves, I guess. And I ran toward the house. And so my car was parked with an empty lot, was on the passenger side. So I ran toward this house, and they didn't take off with my car. My purse was in there and my phone and the car fob. And if I would have taken my purse, they wouldn't have been able to restart the car. But I didn't even have time to grab that in order to get out of there because I knew it was exit time. And adrenaline was kicking in, but not fear, which was miraculous. I'm like, looking back on it, like, how did I stay calm? I just was, and I had just been injured, right? And I have like this broken neck that I was supposed to go to Mayo Clinic and have surgery for and stuff. And I just zoomed up these stairs, up another set of stairs, through like a vestibule, a door in a vestibule, went through that door and went to the house door, the main house door, and was pounding on it. And they waited. And I'll tell you that part later, why they waited and didn't take off till the people, this is 2:30 in the afternoon, happened to be home and opened the door for me. But they weren't going to because I looked like crazy lady pounding on their door. And they thought, is she here to rob us? And this is just some gimmick, And it was two doctors who happened to be home during the day with their child, a 12-year-old son. And the man of the house wasn't going to open the door, but his wife said, open it, look at her eyes, let her in. And as soon as they let me in, they took off in the car. And so now I'm in the house, my car is gone, and there's a child there, right? And so I don't want to get into panic mode. I'm not going to go there with this young person. So I just go into, oh, that car just took off and my phone is in there and we have to trace my phone. And so I need to do a find my phone. Can I use your computer? And they knew I was being carjacked, but the child was into detective mode. And he's like, yeah, I'll help you. And so we went over and did that. And the parents called the police. And so I was occupied with him doing that and kind of in that kind of reality. It was just still amazing that I hadn't transformed out of that yet. And they were very loving and helpful. And as soon as kind of the police were notified and everything was taken care of, the man of the house offered to give me a ride home. And I didn't hear from the police for 5 more hours because I'm in a metropolitan area where there was a lot of defunding of the police, and the police kind of decided to defund themselves and not be there all the time, even though this neighborhood I was in was paying for extra patrols and stuff. But he gave me a ride home as he was driving me home. I said, wow, stop, there's something in the road. And it was my umbrella that I keep in my car, and it's really floral and bright. And I'm like, that's my umbrella. And so we pulled over and got that. And then I'm like, oh, there's my travel kit, emergency medical travel kit. And we kept finding items so we could kind of tell the path that they took exiting out. Because they left a different way, but they must have come back and got on the parkway, which is the way we were going back to my house. And I found my purse even. And my purse had the wallet in there. And it had didn't have my key. Something in my mouth. But it had all my credit cards, but the cash was gone. And just everything I had in my purse was there. And it's a very unusual purse. It's made out of old pop tabs, soda pop tabs. So I guess they thought it was too identifiable and they threw it up. And so I found a lot of my stuff. And then I went home, and then a friend came over, and then we searched more and found even more stuff, including the gloves and the mask they had on. They had like the COVID mask that they didn't have on right away, but they put on while they were in the car, ready to do something. So that's the kind of the base story. But the other miracles that came was just kind of the compassion that kept flooding in from me around them, just thinking they're so young, and they really wanted to have a car to go for a ride and all these things. And story after story started building into my story as I started announcing to people what had happened. And a girlfriend of mine was driving down the parkway after they took off and came back on the parkway and saw my car, thought it was my car, but my bumper sticker I work with the Mendota tribe, I'm Dakota, and it was gone because I had been rear-ended in that accident back in April. And so she's like, oh, maybe that's not her car. But it was driving really fast and it was running the stop signs. And so she called the police and said, there's a car kind of out of control. And also it's really weird because it's a Prius and they're throwing stuff out of the windows, and nobody who drives a Prius pollutes. She's telling the police this, and they didn't have the time or whatever, people ready to go after the car. So she was right there to report it too, and could follow, it was around a lake, so you could see where the car was going. So she was telling them where they were going. Then later, another friend of mine was talking to me about it. She said, my housemate, my partner, is a juvenile hall detention officer. And he's been home. I knew he was home because something had happened at work, some injury. His head was beaten. He was smashed on the ground in the concrete, and the horridness of it was so bad that they wouldn't even show him the film. He had been home, and it was the juvenile detention hall where the woman who was sitting in the seat next to me, I found out later, was detained. She had 5 warrants out for arrest. And in the state I live in, juveniles only get 4 months for carjacking time in juvie hall. Adults would get 21 years. So often they will employ this youth to go do the initial jacking, and then they have backup. So if you try to defend yourself or do something, 5 cars will pull up. And later the couple whose house I went to told me that after I left, a van pulled up and then another car driving slowly by. And I don't know if they were there to pick up the stuff that was being thrown out or what. But that was something that was happening. Later, a sergeant called me and was on the case. She was a night sergeant, so it was late at night. And she said, tell me the story again. And she went over it with me, and she said, okay, you have, from the MO of these people, the motive operandi, you have people who are frequent flyers at our police station. And they're very, she said, no, she didn't say very. She said they're extremely violent. They will bash your head in to make sure you can't testify in court. She said, I can't believe you're unscathed, that nothing happened to you. So again, another miracle. And knowing the detention officer was, beat in the head and stuff too. I've heard another story where in a supermarket parking lot in this same city, a woman was in her car and pulled out of her car, and people surrounded her to protect her, and they beat her up in front of the people as the people were trying to stop it. And one man had a gun, and then they finally ran, but they had cars, waiting, and they jumped into the cars and took off. And more stories like that, where even a neighbor of mine, so Ojibwe, saw a man yelling for help, called the police, and immediately other cars came up, grabbed the youth, and took them away. Adults driving these cars. So they have a whole team thing. So it's pretty amazing. A day later, my car was found. I guess they used Twitter and put the license plate number out, and someone saw the license plate and called it into the police. And because there were 5 warrants out on one of the young people, they knew when they pulled the car over that they were one of my jackers and it was my car. But they couldn't just pull the car over. It got into a high-speed chase, and these young people went back. I found out where they live because the system kind of shows you everything about them, which is kind of crazy. I thought teens were protected. And they went back through their neighborhood in this high-speed chase and hit into 2 more cars, caused a 3-car crash. And one was a Tahoe, the one they initially hit, that then hit another car. And it was a family in there, and the family was injured, broken legs, things like that. They went under that car, and they showed me pictures of my car, and it was just total. The front end was smashed. Every airbag, I have side airbags. I'm like, oh, I was super protected in that car. And so were they. But they survived, and they ran from, one of them ran from the car. The other one admitted she was the carjacker, and the other one denied it, so they only arrested one. But they lived. They survived this horrible, horrible crash. And when I got to see my car, which was like a month later, I realized the one thing they didn't throw out on my car was my eagle feather. And, you know, this is used for ceremony or, you know, to bless with sage, bless people. And it was hanging in my car. They, for some reason, didn't throw that out. And I think that spirit, that feather, you know, it's the eagles fly the highest to the heavens, right? They're the closest to God, any creature on earth. And that was there to protect me, is how I see it. And I just felt really good about it. Again, that's part of the forgiveness and compassion. Yay, they lived. It wasn't vengeance like they deserve to die, you know, or they should be smashed up and injured because look at how they hurt me, or none of that was there. It was so beautiful to just go, wow, they got to live. And the one who was arrested said, you know, and they haven't heard her say this before, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm really tired of this. And I'd like to kind of go back to school and be a nurse. And it's a helping profession. I'm like, wow, that is a big transformation.
Wow.
Yeah. Double wow.
Yeah. Just
I have a question. At any point, did you have a crash and burn where it caught the trauma of it in form caught up with you, or did straight through it never hit you?
never hit me. I'll tell you a little tunes of
Josine, could you just speak up a little bit louder because you're a little bit faint?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're still a little bit. Are you farther away from the microphone?
I moved my microphone. Did I? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. It's just a little quiet.
Huh, wonder. Is that better?
Yeah, that's
better.
Yeah. That's better.
Oh, yeah. Much better.
Okay, good. Saying it's defaulting to something else. So let me know if it goes out again.
Okay.
So I didn't have trauma, and they kept checking. The sergeant was just so loving, so benevolent to me, and calling me all the time and checking on me. She goes, "You not getting trauma?" What she was kind of aghast. She said, "These guys are extremely violent. You avoided that, and you're not. So many people live in fear. They don't even want to drive again." All this stuff she was giving me because she'd seen it all. And weirdly, this is the other miracle. This is like the signs, signals, and clues of God on earth saying, hey, I'm with you, is groups of teenage girls kept coming up to me when I was out in public, like exactly four, which is really weird. And I haven't ever had teens approach me except when I work with them. Like 4 of them came up to me and said, is this the such and such building? And the name, and this is in the dark, right? And I'm like, they're advancing toward me. The name of the building is hugely written on there. It's right there, right? And I'm standing by it. And I'm like, yeah, see the name? And they went into the building. I didn't know the building was open. it was just weird. It's like, wow, that was weird. In grocery stores, like 4 teenagers would come up to me just again and again, and there was no fear response. And I'm like, wow, I'm being tested and I'm passing the test or something. It's just, yeah.
That's really beautiful. Very, very profound. I had such a remote experience where I came home to my house, and obviously it scared some kids who were robbing my house.
Mm.
And I went in, and my first response is, wow, I got robbed and look how much stuff I still have. and then it went into like hearing that there were kids, police came and hearing that there were kids, and they had like put my phone, was not the time of cell phones. And they had like put my phone gently on my bed. Like nothing was ripped up and ripped apart. And I was really very peaceful about it. But a few days later, I think it was Easter, my mom had someone come and leave an Easter basket for me and didn't tell me. And it did trigger trauma then. It was like, wait, and I wasn't doing course practice at the time. So I really love to hear how you kept your balance and you kept it moving. And, these situations that are possible to see differently. And my mother used to tell the story of how she was on the subway and she was in a car alone, and there were a few kids, teenagers, and they were looking at her and looking at her purse and looking at her purse. And she decided she'd gotten the course, and she was into the course by that point pretty heavily. And she thought, this is forgiveness opportunity. I feel threatened. They're not the same color skin as I am. I feel threatened. I'm just going to connect with them in love. And the guy went to get her purse, came at her, and she ended up dropping it. And she just kept beaming love at him. And he picked it up off the ground. He looked at it. He looked at his friends. And then he handed it to her and said, have a nice day. And they got off the car. And, that was her perception of the story. I can't guarantee that they were ever going to rob her. But in her experience, everything shifted. She wasn't scared. And she never got scared. I mean, it didn't trigger anything later. And it sounds much more similar, but yours is way extreme.
Yeah. That I love hearing. It's so cool about telling the story because I get to hear stories like this that just adds to the miracles. I did get to go on Zoom I went on Zoom to the court hearing, one of them, and I was going to testify for the defendant, right? For the young woman who had jacked me, on her behalf, to say she wasn't violent. She did not do any violence toward me. Mm-hmm. And she even apologized that she maybe was going to do it. I wanted to give that message, but I ended up just being a silent observer, and just, she knew I was there. And she didn't know my name or anything. And, but I was there, and I just was there as a prayer. I often feel like a prayer, like I just have to walk as a prayer, because I don't know the outcome.
What did stop you from stepping in and testifying?
Well, I listened to the judge. She had threatened judges. She had threatened it, so it had to go to another county court because of her threats to even her own attorney. And they were kind of all riled up and had notions about the other county not doing a good job. And there was all this judgment, and it was a judge, so I guess that makes sense. And then the prosecutor and the defense attorney, just the feel of them, I thought they wouldn't accept testimony from me. They weren't even going to have me speak. So I just decided, unless they ask, I'm here. They can use me. Mm-hmm. But I told the ombudsman or whatever, the advocate for me, because there's a victim advocate, that I would be willing to do that. And they passed it on, and they chose not to use me. So I thought, they know their system. I did insist.
You're too compassionate, Josine. They don't they don't want that. Whose team are you on here?
I did insist that she go for treatment out of town, so she'd get away from the influence, because she was really vying to stay near her friends so they could come visit her during her 4 months. But I wanted her to spend a little more time to get treatment, because in this state, they don't even give you like 12 steps or any addiction stuff until after. And when I picked up my car, this was really poignant, and it really brought the compassion and forgiveness. There, I got to go through it. There's glass everywhere. It was just horrible. And there was my eagle feather broken and just really tangled up, but in this beautiful form. I should have a picture of it to show you guys, but it looks beautiful, ruffled feather. And also in there, and they had already investigated, my insurance company, the police, everything, but there was a receipt for Dairy Queen. And I just went, yeah, these are children. They got to have a car. They got to have a vacation. They got to drive fast. They got to go to Dairy Queen. They were with their friends, and that's how I blessed it. And they're alive. They're alive.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to, like, I don't equate compassion as synonymous with forgiveness in terms of the course. So I'm interested in how you see it as the same. And I certainly see this as a forgiveness story in every way. And I can see where compassion brings you to forgiveness. But I tell me how you see it as the same.
Well, weirdly, I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this podcast, I should probably refer to the Course in Miracles during it.
It helps.
So I practiced, how long I would be talking. I didn't know how long. And I just practiced telling the story with a timer. And then at the very end, I thought, oh, I'll pick up my book. And I opened it. And weirdly, it had a blank page. Remember, I brought him to a blank lot, an empty lot. And there's this empty page on one side, and then this other page with the simplicity of salvation. And I had underlined in there, and in this choice is everyone made free. And I love that about the course, that I when I miracle coach, I tell people, choose again, choose differently, choose again. We can make 8,000 choices all day long. And we do that with our negative voice in our head. We have to say, ooh, don't want to be doing that. And it just goes on. And I thank you, Father, for these holy ones who are my brothers as they are your sons. My faith in them is yours. I'm as sure that they will come to me as you are sure of what they are and will forever be. They will accept the gift I offer them. And they did. They kind of went into my world because you gave it to me on their behalf. And as I would but do your holy will, so will they choose. And it's just, and the page before that, I was looking at the denial, the temptation to perceive yourself defenseless, and the power to bring this peace to everyone who wanders in the world uncertain, lonely, and in constant fear. And the compassion of that was there with me, and that allowed the forgiveness, that kind of love.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of a route to forgiveness.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like a wordsmith. I love playing with words, and I kind of have my own language. I have a feeling language that I teach too. And I'll take words, and like I'll say, I feel gruntled. It's like that.
Yeah.
Change things up. Because
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So I always say people are magnets, and we have the push and the pull, but we're still the magnet. So I just flipped it for them. And I flipped it for myself mostly, and being that model. I think as course people, we're models. We can't always, we can't control others, but when we change, the world changes.
And as you say that too, I mean, what comes to mind, which I've never really dwelled on, but you came with the passion of love, and that's compassion. You come with passion, and that way of coming without the fear and being centered in the love. That's wherein miracles lie.
Yeah, there's a line in the course, I think I'm getting it right. It said, would you rather be hostage of the ego or fear or host to love, God or God. And that makes me think of this. It's like you're right there on that decision point. Which one are you going to be?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
And thank you for having me.
Powerful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Some savvy kind of street smarts built in with the compassion too kind of took over there. Some like misdirection and things that you did were pretty savvy, probably just on automatic cruise control for survival, but good nonetheless. So great. Well, Josine, we really like to keep it practical for people, and obviously this was kind of an extreme case of forgiveness, but we're told they're all the same. But when you get in kind of an ego storm and things come up and you're feeling maybe negative emotions and there's a story and it seems really real and there's want to be this blame and projection, how do you get back on track? Is there anything that you do that you find is helpful for you, that where you can get back centered into a centered place?
Can you hear me with my microphone? Okay. I had this other little mini miracle happen that, again, I told you my definition of abundance and to just know I already have it, that it's going to be okay kind of thing. All is well is my mantra. And I was, waking up in the morning and there was these worry thoughts, kind of what I think in my brain, because it's like, oh, it will help me do this. Remember to do it. Like, oh, I got to fill the water tank or, things like that. Just little subtle worry thoughts kind of came up right when I woke up. And usually I wake up saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I didn't get to go there. And these thoughts were there and they weren't harsh, but they were there. And then all of a sudden in the middle of them, this, when you go, oh, like someone said, I'll fill the tank for you, the water tank or something. And you just get that relief feeling in there for like 3 seconds. A relief feeling came. And then I went back to the worry thoughts, but it was there. And I'm like, that was inside of me. That came from me. That wasn't someone saying that fill the tank. It came, my body produced that. And I always tell people, you got to ground your body to get to spirit. We think spirit's out here. Woo. And it's like, no, go into the body, go into this vessel we have. It's our little tool, and then go to spirit. And I know I can do that now. And so I don't walk fearless, but I'm ready to go there a lot. And that has just been and I have to bring people there. And, I did it for a sporting event that made NFL history, by grounding and walking around the stadium and doing things. And there was other miracle workers in the crowd that told me they were doing it too, because the crowd was saying, this is unbelievable plays. And they were mad at the team. And I was telling people to stop booing, be in celebration that they're going to do it around me. And the other people in the crowd that I knew, I guess, were doing that too. And we just decided that unbelievable was a word we could work with and make it unbelievably good. And that's what happened. It made history.
That's a great switch. Thank you. Really makes a difference. And I think, there is a line between fearless and brave. And I think when we commit to being brave to do what we hear, it doesn't always mean there isn't some fear in there. And that's part of our coursework. How do we get to where the fear is gone? It sounded like your first experience was there. The fear was not even there, but you were also very brave in it. And also you were really brave, I should say. But just for listeners, it's you can't have some fear or nervousness and still be brave to choose what you hear, even if it sounds counter to what you might normally do. You hear it, you go with it, and there is bravery there.
Yeah. And I'm with two brave people. And there's this beautiful thing about studies they've done on people who are extreme sports people. And here in my region, they surf on the Great Lakes in ice chunks. They're dodging ice chunks and rocks and And they say that the extreme sports people are more fearful than a typical person, but they push past the fear. And that's all we do, is just be brave and push past the fear and use the fear as a tool. Instead of letting it constrict your blood vessels, you realize it's getting me more oxygen. I can do more with my body. And they've done studies where those who decide stress is good instead of bad, their vessels open instead of constricting. So they get the heightened oxygen rate but the opening of the vessels, and they live longer.
Interesting.
Eustress versus distress. That might be the term. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. It's just, using it as a tool. Everything that comes up, it's like the obstacle is the path.
Yep.
Children see a boulder in the road. We stop and go, oh my God, there's a boulder. We can't go any further. And children are like, let's climb on it.
Let's climb it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Well, Josine, we've come to the point in the interview where we'd like to ask, what's your favorite comfort food?
Seafood. I seafood and I eat it. I do like shrimp is kind of my addiction. But no, I use food for sustenance, but I have a little Irish blood in me, and potatoes. Potatoes are the thing. So we like to mull things over, and like a potato is something that as you peel it, you're just kind of revealing it. Once, when I was away at college, my mom sent me a big crate of potatoes, bundle of potatoes, and we made au gratin. We made every kind of potato you could make: mashed potatoes, smashed potatoes, cheesy potatoes, baked potatoes. Just golden dollars, and so I can live off of potatoes.
Those au gratin potatoes are really good.
Yum. Scalloped potatoes. Yes. I'm in there. I love any kind of potatoes. And, in the Jewish tradition, there's the potato pancakes, which I adore.
Oh, yeah, those are good too.
I'm a gastronomical Jew.
Well, I'm in this way like a horrible Jew, because my favorite potato latkes, which is what we call them, were actually, when I asked the person, and they wouldn't tell me what they were made with. And I was like, this is off the charts, amazing. What are these made with? And finally I nailed the person, and he said, they cook them in bacon fat, which is very non-Jewish. You're not supposed to do anything with pork. Right. But man, they were good. They were really good.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Josine, that was a wonderful story of forgiveness, compassion, healing, and looking at things from a different perspective. Really appreciate you coming on Miracle Voices and sharing your miracle voice. And we wish you well through the winter and the rest of the year.
Oh, thank you. And
completely.
Thank you, Tam and Matt, for being here, because it just, you're bringing the miracles, in a way that now we have a gadget in our pocket that can just bring it to everyone. And I'm glad you're doing that. Thank you.
I just want to say before we get off this, that there's something, spirit is just so funny. So I'm sitting in a mostly empty parking lot where I found to get to do this podcast, and a car of teenagers just drove up and parked next to me. I don't know if you can hear their loud music, but there's four of them. There's four of them in there right now. And four
Are
right
they all
there
female?
in the car next to me. They're all female.
Will you put a thumbs up to them? Give them a thumbs up.
Absolutely. I totally will. That's right. I just waved and they all waved.
Oh, good.
That's funny. Okay. Well, there you are. And that's the close of yet another podcast.
Miracles keep it coming.
So funny. Okay.
Thanks, Josine. Thanks, Tam.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Love.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening today. Please subscribe to Miracle Voices by hitting the subscribe button on your podcast app. If you are enjoying these conversations, please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you use. And lastly, please visit us at miraclevoices.org and join our newsletter so we can stay connected. Until the next podcast, I want to leave you with my favorite course quote: "When you want only love, you will see nothing else."